going to be going over my project that's written inside of Python. I'm just deleting some disk files. Now the application works based off of heap memory and then it backs up into the disk. If you look at the code, it has dump to disk function and read from disk function, the disk to heap. That the heap storage is mainly the storage in RAM, and you can access it only when the app is running, and it goes away when the app closes down. So the dump to disk dumps the data in a JSON format into the disk. Now let's run the application inside of the terminal in VS Code. To do that, I just simply type python.exe and the file name. Now it does give me a warning because this is the first time, and if you read through it, it says if it's your first time, please ignore this, press to continue, and I shall add my income as £2,000. Now, in the real time, you can see it has an income file, and if you go look at the income file, this is on the disk. Even though the app closes, let's say we close down the application like this, and we run this, and we type in view summary, it still shows my savings as £2,000, because now this is reading from the disk. Now, I'm just going to continue this, and you can see the exception handling. If I just keep on entering, it is going to prompt me again and again for a bad input. It's going to say, hey, please enter a number. So let's add a expense. And let's say this is a essential expense. And this is my car insurance. And for this value, I'm going to say 240. And then title is going to be car insurance. And now you can also see an expense file. It stores the data in an array of expense in JSON format. It has a value, title, and a type. Now let's add some bad values to test the application. Again, the function underneath is the same, so it is going to prompt the user again and again for a number. So let's also add a non-essential expense, and let's say I spent £100 on food. It's going to add that in the disk, and if I view my summary, it shows me my savings, and it also shows me my total expenses up to now. It sums all of this array data, the value field. It also tells me the financial health. If I'm above 40%, it tells me that you have 83%, you're doing a great job, and you're looking good for the month. You don't need to worry about anything. It gives me an alert if I'm below 40%. And let's also go over the code base a bit. Now, the code base is divided into some sections. First is the type section. The expense type is something like this. It has some functions built in to JSON, and this is for printing data. This helps Python to print the object. So if you're ever trying to print the object, it's going to print it in this manner. Now, the next function is the heap storage function. It's simply a dictionary of key value pairs, like a hash map. It has a read integer function, it has a write function, and a clear function. The next function is dump to disk function and read from disk function. These functions dump memory from the RAM to your disk folder, wherever you chose. Now, if you move on to the next section, these are some helper functions. This has get variable, get integer, sget integer. This is for if you want to add a string, or if you want to have some customizability in the input field, you can do this. It has a clear screen function. It has a text box function that you might have seen in the initial or in the summary section. If I press number 3, this uses the text box function. It has some UI features, well, some prompts in the initial application. Then it has the service layer, There it has add income, that is a wrapper over the cache or the storage in the heap section functions actually. So this is a wrapper over the heap read-write functions. Add expense, again, it provides a key value and stores. Get total expense, key value, stores. It does some checks for not nulls and of some error handlings as well. Again, these are all similar functions. These are read-write functions and the wrappers over there. These are for simplification and testability. You don't really write the code in one big function. You want to break them down so you can test all these functions separately. Now, in the end, you have a handle income function, which handles the income, again, a wrapper over the whole thing. And this is one big body, which uses a case, which uses a case. Depending on the case, it guides the user to essential or non-essential expense. It has a summary function which provides it with all of the data necessary, calculates the percentage. If the percentage is less than 40, it prompts this, and if it's not, it prompts to save more money. Then it has a main function. The main function is called at the very start of the application. It has all those functions being called over here. The configuration load, UI initial, that prompts the user welcome to Finance Calculator. UI initial options, which provides all those initial options. Handle switch prompt, basically returns a integer from the switch, passes it over the prompt switch. Then you have handle initial prompt. Again, this is being called over here. It returns the date, returns the integer, and also prints it. The initial prompt switch, it shows you the options, and if you choose the option, let's say if you choose option 1, it is you gonna use a case statement, or in Python 3.10 you call it a match. Depending on that, depending on whatever decision you go with, if you go with option 1, it's going to go to the income function. If you go with option 2, it's going to go into the expense function. If you choose option 3, it's going to go in the summary function. And then at the end, you call this while loop. It infinitely runs. If there's any blocking functions throughout, it will stop there, but it will infinitely run in a loop until you press exit. That is option 4. After every loop, it dumps the data to the disk, and at the start of every loop, it reads data from the disk. So it keeps everything in sync and tight. So this is just the application, and let's do one more test before we go. Let's add more expenses. So I'll add a £1,000 essential expense to my university. And if I see this, you can see the history. It shows car insurance, food as non-essential expense, and £1,000 spent on university as a essential expense. Again, it's going to update all of those data over here, and it's being read from here. If I delete this, and if I view a summary, it will still show the data. Reason being, it's stored in the heap. Now let's say I clear this, now the file is deleted, and I run this application. It is going to give me this initial message that if either it's in a cloud environment, or if it's not found the file, it's going to say that, hey, just run the app if it's the first time. If not, you might want to look into it. But the exception handling is done in a way where it would create a new file, if it is allowed, obviously. Now, if to just check that works, press option 1, you say £1,000, and you say title is car. It creates the file, and now you can view your summary. £1,000 spent on a car. Perfect. It's working perfectly fine, and that's all.